So, you know, a couple housekeeping things for you folks online. We will have this is being recorded. First of all, just know that, but your faces and your voices aren't shown to people. They're just there. If you have questions, please put them in the Q&A. At the end, we will ask questions to Adrian, if that's okay with you. And folks here in person, please ask questions towards the end. Write them down. Whatever happens, we'll get to a question period at the end. But other than that, it's all good. Feel free to chat amongst yourselves online and all of these other things. Other than that, I'm gonna stop wasting time and let Adrian do his thing. Miigwech.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Adrian Harjo. I'm from the Kickapoo and Seminole nations of Oklahoma. I got up here to the wonderful country of Canada by way of my lovely wife, who is in the back getting dressed. We thought it'd be cool to not only talk about some of these dances and their origins, but to also share an actual example so you guys can see live dancing. And then very, very possibly, if time permits, and if anybody needs it for this weekend, even a little instruction on some of the dancing in case you guys want to actually get out there and dance in the intertribals and stuff. So we'll get into that and the dancing and singing, but yes, we are going to have a little bit of singing and a little bit of dancing as well. So now about me again, I'm from Oklahoma, grew up in Kansas City. I've been married for almost 25 years to a wonderful Mohawk woman. We live on the Six Nations Reserve, just about an hour from here. And I said, I've been up around here for about 24 to 25 years now. I've made this my home. I absolutely love it. It's a different type of a powwow trail that is up here. And that's important to note too, that different sections of the United States and Canada, the powwows are ran really differently and whatnot. But again, we'll get into that later. So I just wanted to share also how I obtained my knowledge that I do have on powwows. And any of my elders would always tell me too that, you know, the phrase that any man who knows something knows that he knows nothing at all. I know very, very little compared to some of the elders that are out there that really hold knowledge and hold stuff. So I don't claim to know everything or at all, even close to it. I know a little bit, and I can help you guys get started with Powwow 101. So that knowledge was given to me when I was probably about roughly around 9 or 10. I grew up in Kansas City. I went to a little Indian camp, or as we called it, an Indian camp, right? And what they were doing was we have a Heart of American Indian Center there for the general public of the Native Americans and whatnot in Kansas City. They started doing this Indian camp, native camp, and they would round up all of the kids from Kansas City that were native or had some kind of native lineage, and they would bring them into this camp for 2 weeks, and we'd camp out in these really, really nice, I want to call them cabins. We had a swimming pool, a mess hall, all of that. But through the 2 weeks, we learned about spirituality, we learned about language, culture, our history, we learned to dance, we learned to sing, we learned to craft, we learned to do boat, fish, all of that stuff that they figured Indian kids should be doing. And so that is the general idea of how they started to bring kids in. Now, from that, a few of us rose, about 3 of us young men rose from that crowd of children into a brotherhood called Eagle Talon Brotherhood. They were a group of approximately 30 to 40 men that came together, native guys that were living in the inner cities. And they came together to form this brotherhood. And they called the Eagle Talon Brotherhood. And at a certain point, we were starting to lose some of the elders that were holding the knowledge. So they recruited 3 of us younger boys, brought us in, roached us up, did all kinds of, you know, ceremonies to get us into the society, put our feathers on the Eagle staff. And then we were members of that brotherhood. And so from there, all of these elders, the ones that at least I got to experience, they began to pour all of their knowledge into the 3 of us. So every function that we went to, I got it not from one elder, but about 30 different elders representing probably over 100 different tribes. So that's where I came to be like, okay, I know a little bit about that. I know a little bit about that. I know something about that too. I've done a lot and traveled with these elders and all over the place. And so over the years, they poured a lot of knowledge in me. But again, I don't know everything or even close to it. but I do know quite a bit, and that knowledge came from all of these gentlemen: Charlie Goslin, Bill Stopp, Will Harjo, Preston Tone Pote Sr., Preston Tone Pote Jr., Clifford Hubbard, Pops Hubbard, his dad, all of these guys, they influenced me and shared their knowledge with me before they all started passing. Now, even today, we've only got like 5 of our elders left out of, like, you know, the 30, 40 when I was a young man. So this is where I get my knowledge from. So I just wanted to state that off first so that you guys knew where I was coming from and how I've learned and acquired this knowledge since I was probably about 7 or 8 years old. So does that make sense, everybody? Okay, let's get into Pow Wow 101. First thing about Pow Wow, I read through the script there. First thing I'm going to share with you guys is the word powwow. Anybody know where it comes from? Nope. Okay, cool. I do. So the word powwow, as it is used today, came from what I believe the Narragansett people out on the East Coast. And what happened was, in the early days, I would say maybe 1800s, somewhere back around that time frame, and you know, contact had kind of happened and colonies were going up, but the non-natives started observing the natives, right? And they noticed that when they would gather around in groups, or when they would have celebrations or anything that they would gather, they noticed they gathered around their powwow, which meant their medicine man. In Narragansett, they called him a powwow. And so non-natives noticed that every time they did something, every time they gathered as a people, they'd always gather around that powwow. And so they wondered why that was. And as they did more research, they discovered he's a medicine man. And for us medicine men, along with our elders, even if their elders don't conduct themselves doing medicine, medicine men are one of the primary, like our guidance counselors, I guess, if you want to say. They guide us spiritually, they guide us mentally, sometimes physically. And then a lot of times, some of those medicine men take it even further, and they're into medicine, which most people would kind of refer to as magic. You know, like we have legends of little people and all sorts of stuff, but these medicine men are who they gathered around. And so when they started noticing that every time they gather around the powwow. Eventually, powwow got turned into Pow Wow. And then all of the people around that area started to use that one specific term to describe an Indian or a native gathering. So that is essentially where that word powwow came from. It really didn't have nothing to do with like the dances and stuff we do now. It just meant that they're gathering around a certain person, or they're gathering as native people. That is a powwow. And so today, even in modern English and stuff, non-native people use that word. Oh, Dave, you know, or hey, Skip, you know, I gotta talk to you. Let's powwow at the water cooler a little bit later, and we'll get it nailed out, you know. And all I can say to that is some people find that offensive. Some people don't. I'm one of the ones that don't. I understand the underlying things of why people could find things like that. It doesn't particularly offend me. A lot of things don't offend me. I'm going to say some other things today too that are probably going to be not too welcome, but it's the honest truth. Is how I feel about things. But yes, that is where that term powwow, I feel free to use it. You know, everybody uses it. Use it however you want. It's more of a word that's accepted. The word Pow Wow now, it's accepted all over Indian country, Canada, United States, everywhere you go. They even have powwows in Germany and France and Hawaii and all over the world. So use it. That is the actual term, or the origin of that term. So before we got into actually powwow 101, I figured you guys would like to learn where that particular word come from. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay, let's talk about powwows. Does anybody have any questions so far? Not yet. Okay, you will by the end. All right. I'm going to read this, and then I'm just going to elaborate on it. And then, like I said, at the end, too, if you guys have any questions, ask away. Even do we do questions from the people at home? We can do? Okay. Okay, so I'm going to read this. Put on my best MC voice there. The first people to create the powwow were the Omaha people of the northeastern Nebraska area of what is now known as the United States. This nation also borders the Winnebago Nation. The people call this celebration the Wawachi, or the Dance of Thanksgiving. Being the oldest celebration in the United States, the Omaha celebrated their 190th Pow Wow in 1993. So they're well beyond that. According to the longtime tradition, the Omaha conducted their celebration during the first full moon in August to guarantee no rain. This format has been shared with countless nations in North America ever since. Okay, pretty accurate. I would say the Omaha people, we refer to them, their original name is Ubanhan. That is how you would say that, and that's where that, again, like how Pow Wow got turned into Pow Wow, Umanhan got turned into Omaha, or like that. So, and the Omahas, to my knowledge, and this is even going back, the Omahas, the Winnebagos, and the Ho-Chunks, and don't get me wrong, the Punkas, where they say the fancy dance come, they were all one nation a long, long time ago, and they split into those factions like that and kind of went other places, and the Ponkas actually went down to Oklahoma, but they took those dances that began powwow. So one of the first dances that began the powwows is essentially when our warriors would come back from battle or a hunting trip or something of that nature, and they would want to share their experience with, you know, their families, friends, the other warriors in their village and whatnot. So they would do these dances called war dances, or as they're in their word, it's called a helushka. And that is their war dance. And all they did were basically using the motions of their dance and the way that they were doing that to tell a visual story of their achievements out on the battlefield or wherever they were doing. So that's what got typically known as the war dance. Now, one lesser known thing that people kind of cringe at this point, one of the lesser known things is that when they started doing the war dance, they were at times where they were in conflict with non-native people. And so what happened was, and I'm gonna be very explicitly real with you guys because this is where it comes from. They were experiencing the scalping thing, which is why kind of it gets into that whole redskin thing, you know. But they were experiencing scalping that was introduced by the Dutch. Okay, not our thing. Scalping was never our thing. But since we were starting to be scalped and scalps sold, and you guys can ask questions about that later, what they started doing was the Omaha started returning the favor. And when they returned that favor, they took those scalps and they tucked them in the back right here and wore them off of their outfit. And then that's how they danced around. There's even video on YouTube, if you Google it, old Omaha hair dance. And there's an actual from 1901, and there's two Omaha warriors sitting there, and they're just jamming out. And you can see those scalps hanging off of the back. Some of them, they would supplement horsehair to symbolize it too. They started wearing horse tails and all of that. But the original symbolism was to wear a scalp to show how many enemy that they had killed. Eventually, those scalps got replaced with horsehair. Eventually, horsehair got replaced with tufts of sweetgrass. Eventually, sweetgrass got replaced with fringe, and on and on and on until we have what's known today as our grass dance, which we'll get into again later in the dance. But that's how the powwows began. The warriors coming home, doing that halushka dance and telling their stories amongst people. Now, other gatherings happen like the Iroquois, very different. They have ceremonies and socials all year to celebrate different things. Those could be considered powwows as well. But in this day, we refer to them as socials, right? So that is where essentially the powwows began. I know that's pretty brutally honest, but that is honestly where they began. And I say that because a lot of times in powwows, a lot of what you would call fairy tale stories are shared, right? Like, you know, oh, the fancy shawls came from the butterflies, and you know, there's a very real story and factual information of where it actually came from. And so that's what I want to share with you guys this evening. So anyways, coming home, celebrating like that, that's where the eventual powwows. And yes, he said the Omahas celebrated 190 years in 1993. The Crow Nation, we were there in 2017, and I believe that was their 99th year of having powwows. And so these different tribes all over the nation have adopted this whole kind of thing of powwow, and now we have, I think of them as almost softball tournaments, sports tournaments around singing, dancing. They even do stick games. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of those, but they do stick games, which is a gambling game. They sometimes have basketball tournaments at these powwows, rodeos. It's just a weekend to celebrate and to compete against each other and celebrate our language, our heritage, our dances, and our history. So that is essentially the origins of powwow. Let's see what he has on next. Before I move on, any questions on that one? Nope. All right, there's a whole quiet Q&A thing at the end, so no worries. Okay, powwow singing. Powwow singing derives from ancient ceremonial singing. It has a structure that requires all singers to sing loudly in the same key or pitch and in unison. 4 identical verses are sung repeatedly. There are definitive heartbeats at the end of every verse that signify the end of said verse. These are known as honor beats. Singing, drumming is meant to invoke the spirit of the listener. Native people believe it is healing in nature. In North America, there are 3 main styles of powwow singing: Northern, Contemporary, and Southern. All this is true, okay? So yes, singing. The first thing I would say about singing that you guys probably be the most important thing to know is what it is, what you are actually hearing when you're singing. Does anybody have any idea what we're saying or what you guys are hearing? No? Okay. Essentially what it is a vocal melody. You know the old Christmas song that goes, deck the halls with boughs of holly, and then that part that goes, fa la 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 la. That is what you're hearing when you hear powwow singing. It's mainly just a vocal melody. It doesn't necessarily mean anything, although combinations of melodies can be made for a specific reason. But each ya and hey and way and a and yo and all of that, it means absolutely nothing. It's just a fa la 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 melody that we carry the melodies with us. Now, on top of that, the reason why we sing that way is simply because, and I'm sure you guys already knew this, 500 different tribes, 500 or more than that, right? And United States and Canada. Many of these tribes speak completely different languages and have different ways of doing things and all of that. So when they do come together to powwow or to celebrate, even if it's just 2 neighboring nations, if they're not familiar with the language and there is a language barrier there, the best way to beat that language barrier is what? Sing your songs in a vote. I've been around the world, and no matter where I went, everybody knows fa la 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 la. They all know that melody. The other one they oddly know is that that's the other melody they know from that is from Fern Gully. I bet you guys didn't know that. I think it's 1969 maybe. Fern Gully, long time ago. So yes, I'm older than I look, but yes, those are the melodies, and that is precisely what you're hearing when you do hear native singing. I'm going to demonstrate a couple little things real quick, but yeah, it's simple melodies. Sometimes we do put words in there, and those can be sung for special reasons or for certain things, just like deck the halls with fa la 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 la. We have songs like that too. Does that make sense? You heard the words Gaki Oni Mentowa is Cree for everybody come in and dance, right? And then you move to that piece right here where it's yeah, 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 hey. That's the fa la 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 part. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay, so that's really singing. So even this weekend, if how many's going to the powwow? Everybody's going to the powwow. Okay. Everybody's going to the powwow. All right. So basically you guys will be taking instructions from me. So when I say intertribal dancing, man, I mean everybody. Don't be ashamed. It's up. You know, like I said, we're gonna have some dancing here in a few minutes, and it's really easy to do. So when I say intertribal, come on out. If you have any questions, ask somebody. We have head dancers this weekend for that. I'll announce them. Any questions, go ask the head lady, go ask the head man. They're more than willing to help you if you don't know the step or am I able to sing or to dance at this one. So we're very inviting, very inviting. But yes, so anyway, so that's powwow singing. Northern, I will demonstrate real quick. The 2 main is Northern and Southern. Are you guys familiar with a little bit of the United States geography at all? A little bit? You guys know where Kansas is? Oh, okay. I was about to say, everybody giggles when I say Kansas. Kansas is a, I love it there. I love it there. But Kansas is like heart of America, right in the middle, right? And so there's, I want to say, an unwritten rule, okay? An unwritten rule in the United States. If you go from coast to coast like that, if you go through right to Kansas City, Kansas, there is a highway that runs to the East Coast all the way to the West Coast called I-70. Everybody knew that, right? And then there's another one that goes like this called I-30, I think, yeah, I-35. It goes from up and down, all from the northern border all the way down to Galveston Island, Texas. And it's oddly enough, I live right where those two intersect. I live right off the highway right there. But growing up there, we understand this, that highway that goes like this, the I-70, it's generally accepted that anything above that, tribes, styles, and stuff like that are considered northern, right? Anything below that is considered southern, and they have two different styles of singing. I'll do a little bit of southern or northern to kind of demonstrate that, and then we'll talk about southern. Let's see if I got it. Northern singing. Thank you very much. Now, like I said, that highway there, it's like it's not written anywhere. It's just kind of, we always knew that anything above that's considered northern and we sing high. Reasoning why, I know some of you who may not be familiar with powwows got to be wondering, why do we sing high like that, as especially as men, right? The reason is, this is interesting, actually. The reason is this. Here's the story. Remember the Omahas I was telling you guys about? The Omahas. And then you had the Lakota people. Everybody knows the Lakota people is the Sioux Nation, right? They were fighting really, really bad because the invasion was pushing the Omahas over into Lakota territory. So I'm doing it from your, oh, I'm doing it this ankle like that. So they were pushing it and pushing them into their territory. And so they began fighting. And eventually, believe it or not, it was the women that were wise enough to tell the men to put their weapons down. And we had to focus on the incoming invasion. So they told the men, take this drum that we use for our helushkas, our war dance, give it to the Lakota people and give them our songs, give them our war dance songs and teach them our ways, teach them our songs, because we're going to need to come together as nations in order to defeat this illegal invasion, right? So the men went over there, they made peace with the Lakota, they gave them the drum. And when the men from the Lakota nation got the drum, they didn't know how to sing. So it was the grandmothers from the Omahas that came over there, and the grandmothers sat there and taught the men how to sing. So you got to imagine that when the men are all sitting around listening to the grandmothers, you know, the grandmothers were singing really, really high. So the men was like, you know what? We don't want that little bit of information to get lost throughout the years, because, you know, told, the story is told, the story is told, you lose stuff every single time. So in order not to lose too much information, they decided to lift their voices up high like the grandmothers. And so now that's why we sing really, really high like that, to honor those grandmothers that maintained the peace between the nations and brought those two nations together to fight off the invaders. So now when we sing as Northern people above that I-70 mark there, we sing in the, you know, we sing really, really high like that. It does come down a little bit into those lower registers, but for the most part, we're singing high to honor our grandmothers. So I hope that makes sense. Now let's go down to Oklahoma. I was actually born in Oklahoma, down in Lawton, and I attended boarding school down in Oklahoma. They still got boarding schools, but they're obviously not like, you know, boarding schools. So I went down to Jones Academy down there during my high school years, and learned a little bit more about Southern stuff. So here's Southern singing. Oh, we hey, oh, hey, 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 oh, hey, oh, hey. Oh, I just sing all day. It's hard to stop a song when you stop it, right? Or when you start it. Thank you. So Southern singing, yeah, it's lower register, kind of a deeper feeling. That happened, again, remember I told you, back to the Omahas, right? When part of their tribe split off, they said they didn't want to stick around in that area. They didn't want to sign treaties. They didn't want to do that. Oklahoma was being touted as a big reserve. The entire state was supposed to be a big reserve, right? So they told them, the Ponkas told the rest of the Omahas, we don't want no part of this. We're going to Oklahoma. So they traveled south to the state of Oklahoma and established their own I guess you want to say colony reservation kind of thing. There's not really reserves in Oklahoma. There's territories. And to this day, that their little territory there is called Ponca City, Oklahoma. And so they went down there. They took the same Helushka songs and all of that stuff that was sung up there that they gave the Lakota. They took them down south and shared them with more of the southern tribes. And so that's where you get the southern singing, the deeper tone, the more fullness there. And they weren't a part of that thing when they gave the drum to the Lakota. So they went down south and continued singing how they sang. So that's where our southern and northern singing is. Is that pretty much cool with everybody? That makes sense? Anybody have any questions on that? Oh, okay, moving right along. Yeah, I pretty much covered that. Yep, I covered that. Wow, sorry, I covered 3 different slides and all of that. I didn't realize that this is all. I'll read it though. It says the singing style is relatively new. First, this is contemporary style singing. First emerging in the late 1970s and the early 1980s in Western Canada, drum groups began putting words from their language into their songs, which speak of a love for dancing and singing. This style is also sung in a very high and loud fashion with hard-hitting drum style. The intensity from this style was widely regarded as a new and youthful approach to powwow singing. Examples are contemporary groups of Northern Cree. Everybody's heard of Northern Cree, right? Blackstone and the Boys. So, okay, well, I'll touch on that in just a real quick minute. I don't know if you actually want me to contemporary sing, because the singing I did like this, the more it's more considered what we call straight style. It's the older style of singing. Now, man, these young guys, these young guys are crazy. They sing this contemporary style. And I'm gonna back up a little bit. I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna give you my young guy. I'm gonna give you my young guy take on this and how they do this. There's memes about this out there too. So I'm gonna give you my young guy take. I'm gonna see if I can do this, man. Here we go. Very aggressive, very loud, hard hitting. So they drum like this. And then it'd be okay. Oh, that's a hard way of singing. That is contemporary singing, but it's what's really popular right now. Like through the years, yeah, it started off with that more natural, straight singing, and then through the years, the groups got, you got 13 guys on there. Everybody's trying to out sing one another and trying to sing as loud. Well, and then remember back in the day, no PA systems, right? So we kind of had to really learn how to sing loud enough for the powwow all the dancers to be able to hear us. And so that's kind of where bells came in too, to keep rhythm with us so we can hear them, right? So yeah, we had to learn to sing really loud and aggressively so that the dancers could all hear us without a PA system, because technically speaking, this is another thing, PA systems are very new to us. I mean, when I was a young man, even in my teens, I had a drum group. We had to bring our own PA system with us to the powwow. So you weren't a real drum group unless you owned a PA system and chairs, you know, and all the cord, everything, and the big trailer to haul your stuff in. So that was the only way you really sang at a powwows, if you were able to bring your own PA system. And then I think somewhere around the mid 90s, somebody got smart and figured it out and hired a sound company to come in and just pass around a cordless mic, right? Crazy how things evolve. Wow. You guys are taking me down a memory lane here. All right. Sure. Like on a weekend or for years? It's tiring. It's if you're singing at that level, there are guys with the voices that can do it, and eventually their voices grow strong enough to be able to just do that. And then a lot of them don't sing during the week. Many of them have jobs, and so they'll go to work and they don't have to do it during the week, right? But it is a very high level of singing. It is very stressful. Some guys actually pinch too. You'll see guys at powwows. There's videos. There's I think videos and memes on this too. When guys do it, in order to kind of help their vocal cords out in there, they'll pinch. You'll see a lot of guys sitting at the drum. And I used to do it back in the day, but then I got into round dance singing, and round dance you got to hold the drum and you got to, so there's no and sneaking up there. So I had to relearn how to sing without pitching my throat. But a lot of times, because that is high level, a lot of guys do pinch to kind of help the vocal cords a little bit, squeeze them and kind of keep them more assured. So, but yeah, it's tiring. I actually, long time ago, personal story real quick, I had to make a decision. When I was just coming out of university, I had to make a decision on whether I was going to pursue a career that I was trying to pursue, and I was trying to be an R&B singer, believe it or not. Got a record deal. I was with the big label. I was doing that, but then I realized that I couldn't go to the powwows on the weekends and sing like that, and then come back during the week and work on an album going, you know, and all of that stuff, because my voice was really, you know, like that. You know, that it's hard on your throat to sing that way. But again, there are very talented guys out there that just are born with the natural gift of a great voice, and it affects them none. But for the 90% of us, it is hard singing. So as I hope I didn't, you know, do too much there. Okay, so yeah, that's Southern. That's all of our singing. I don't know. There's a video here. Were we supposed to play the video, or were you guys cool with the singing examples? You cool with the sing? Okay, yeah. There's a video of Eagle Flight singers who their lead singer is the gentleman that was supposed to be your instructor this evening. They are a championship drum group, man. These guys have literally been all over the United States and Canada. They're a more what you would call original style singing. They sing nice and smooth, like nobody sings like these guys. Even as dancers, you know, I'm a fancy dancer as well. Absolutely love when you walk out on that dance floor and you hear Eagle Flight sing. You're okay. We're getting a good song, man. We're gonna get a good song. So I absolutely love dancing to these guys, but yeah, the point was to give you guys a taste of the singing. So unless you guys, I don't know how we would watch the video though, but there's a video here. So let's move right along. Oh, okay. Let's see. Powwow dance styles. Okay. Now that we're in the dance style, I'll welcome out my lovely wife, if she can hear me, Miss Jennifer Harjo. Here's how you do it. Do it again. Well, me back then. That's love calls right there. Indian couple love calls. In Walmart, we can find each other anywhere. Right? Just give a good. You know that's, you know, then you just give it a back. Oh, she's over by the bread. All right. So this is my wife, Jennifer Harjo. Please give her a round of applause. She's going to demonstrate some powwow dancing for you guys too as well. She's got another dance towards the end when we get into fancy. So she's going to kind of double up for you guys, but we're going to get the jingle out of the way. You want to come on up here so I can explain about the dress? I'm going to read this real quick. There are 3 to 5 dance styles. Oh, that's the male. We'll get into I'll go back to it. Here we go. Oh, sorry. I have another video on here. Okay, there are 4 styles of dances in the female category, depending on where you are from in North America. They are as follows: the women's traditional, the women's jingle, the women's fancy, and the women's scrub. That sounds, and then also we can't leave out women's smoke. Because as much as scrub and the woodland has been in there, women's smoke was in there too. So women's smoke from the Haudenosaunee people. But this particular dance right here is our jingle dress dance. This comes from the Ojibwe Nation of the Whitefish Bay Reserve, way, 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 way up there near Kenora, I think. It's like 1820 from here. So what they did was, and they're roughly about the early 1900s. I've heard a couple different stories about the main one that I heard was right from the man himself, one of the grandsons, Mr. Randy White. And he shared with me that, yes, it was around the more like the 1920s. And I don't know if it was his great grandmother, Maggie White, had gotten real deathly ill. And at the time, nobody knew what it was. Now, with more things kind of being considered, they have said that they thought that maybe it was that Spanish flu that was going around at that time, because it wasn't identified, and it was a real weird time. So she got really sick. And so none of the conventional medicines or anything was working. So they went to their medicine man. Tobacco was given, and a vision was seen. In this vision, they saw the 4 aunties of that little Maggie White making these dresses and putting these jingles on. They said old days, heard this too, that they were on each one of these dresses, they used to say you had to put 365 of these 10 cones or sounds on them, and that sound resembled rain. Rain is a very healing property for many different Indigenous and First Nations people. But Randy White has since corrected me and said back in the day that was not true. You didn't need to put the 365. As long as the dress had the jingles on it, it didn't matter how many you put on. See how I say sometimes, through the years, information gets added and taken away that kind of takes away from the original story. So these dresses were made. They said the aunties would do this dance around the bed of little Maggie White, given a wave like this. And as they would do that, they would wave away all the bad spirits or all the negative energy that was surrounding Maggie and that made her be so sick. And they did this dance many times for little Maggie. And then she eventually ended up getting well enough to live well into, I think, somewhere around her 70s, 80s. There's, again, I hate to go back to YouTube, but there's video of Maggie White dancing in that one of her original dresses there on YouTube in like the 1980s, up on her home reserve of Whitefish Bay. So real person, absolutely real story. This was the gift that the Ojibwe Nation gave us, which is this dance. And now this dance is probably, if not taken over women's fancy, as one of the most popular and commonly done dances throughout all of North America, not even just, in our area where there's a lot of Ojibwe people, right? But all through the East Coast, the West Coast, all up into BC, it is just a very popular dance that women love to do, especially considering its healing properties. So we're going to give her just one and one. Can you do that? Okay. I'm going to sing old style song first. The first song would be like the original style of how they did it back in the when they were using it as a healing ceremony. And then the second song will be more of the contemporary style, the way the young ladies are doing it today at our competition powwows. Ready? Hey, yeah, she's bad at that. At our competition dance, when they have the rules and stuff like that, one of the big things is to stop on the time. So when the drum finishes, the dancer usually has to hit that in and hit it in a pose for men or whatever. And she always has that problem. she does just that. She won't even fake it either. She won't do she'll go, Oh man. I've been telling her since we together. I was like, stop doing that. Yeah. All right, you ready? Okay, we'll try this one. Make it easy. Hey, Thank you. Are you gonna? Oh, okay. So you know no smoking? Okay, that's fine. Sorry, when I said no smoking, I mean no smoke dancing. Again, couple talk, sorry. You should see as I think one of the most interesting things going into competition powwows is usually get 2 songs. So in between the 2 songs, somebody has to run out there and run you water. You know what I mean? And so usually it's if you have your spouse, like when in my contest, she'll run out there and she'll hand me my water and I'll be breathing profuse. How do I look, babe? You know what I mean? So just you need to spin more. You need to bring because that one guy over there, he's got you. He's been all over you. He's been following you around. Okay. All right, so when I go over here, go to the side arena, she goes, do your squats when you get down on that one song. Do those squats. I got you. All right, here you go. That's what it sounds like in between songs. And it's the same thing. How did I look? Did she follow me around? So those are little things in between. It's competition dancing. What this weekend is just like an intertribal kind of traditional powwow, but it gets pretty intense at the contest. If you guys ever get a chance to go to a contest powwow, go check it out. And there's a whole bunch of nice behind the scenes things that you can. Now that you guys know what you're looking for, right? I guarantee if you see somebody run out there, give their partner some water, you'll be. I wonder what they're saying. Okay, men's style, actually. So we discussed the men's traditional. Basically, it was a traditional dance, a storytelling dance. The grass dance came from that. A lot of people say that there's a story that talks about how grass dancers used to go out, put a thing in the field, tie a string to them, and then do these motions where they would pat down the grass to make like a big circle. I've heard that story so many times. I've never confirmed that story though. Everybody that I've always talked to and spoken to about grass dance, he said it come from the Omahas and how they used to wear the tufts of sweet grass off their outfit. And then that's essentially what the grass dance was. I'm sure that there were men that cleared the area and whatnot too, which they still have grass dance societies out in like Montana and Wyoming area. But their stories go very deep. So the grass dance essentially is a dance that came from the traditional dance, or that was actually beginnings of the traditional dance. So it grew into now where they don't wear the bustles. They just wear like these long flowing, sometimes ribbons, sometimes shawl fringe, even leather fringe, but that fringe is supposed to represent the grass and how it waves. So men's fancy, that is the double bustle, the ones right here, very colorful. That came to us in the 1900s. Did you guys ever hear of the Buffalo Bills Wild West show? Was that not really a thing that was taught up here? The Buffalo Bills Wild West show is kind of the beginning of actually modern powwows. It was a show where there was a gentleman named Buffalo Bill, or William H. Cody, I think was his real name, but he went by Buffalo Bill. And he went around with Native Americans and did this kind of cowboy and Indian show, kind of half rodeo, half native games and rodeo games and stuff. In all actualities, Euro Disney over there in Paris, Disneyland Paris, for like 30-something years, a Buffalo Bills Wild West show, employing real natives. Of them are horse rider families from like the Cree Nation out in Alberta. But you got some from the Southwest, but they had a whole show there, and it was a whole dinner show. They reenacted the whole Buffalo Bill, Annie Oakley thing. But yeah, that is essentially where the powwows, the modern powwow came in, because at the beginning of these kind of shows, they would have what's called a grand entry. And that's what we still do to this day. And they would march all of the head people in first, all of the royalty that represented the different organizations or the different other rodeos, saying, you know, hey, come to our rodeo. And then they would march the different categories in, the ropers, you know what I mean, the bull riders, the bronc backs, you know, and then they would march the natives in, and Buffalo Bill would come in, and then his band of, you know, he'd probably have 20, 30 different natives out there, and then they would do a show. And so it was this big thing, and they would make this big grand entry to the band playing and announce everybody as they're coming in, and do like flag ceremonies and all of that, post those flags and those colors. And then that's to this day still what we do at our modern powwows, because we took that, because that's where the traditional dance came, and then that's where the fancy dance came. Have you guys ever seen like the fancy dance? Guys, you could be in so when they first started doing the fancy dance, and they were doing it in all over the place in Oklahoma, but the very first world champions of fancy dance actually happened in Lawrence, Kansas, at the Haskell Indian Nations Institute in 1922. And what they decided was, the Ponkas, who came from the Omahas again, right? Many other were doing it, right? And so what they decided to do is have this world championships. So they had the world championships, all the best guys showed up, and then a gentleman named Gus McDonald showed up, and he showed up with that first bustle on his shoulders, because back before that, they only wore bustle on the back, right? So he decided that he wanted to win more than everybody else. So he just made, it didn't mean anything. It wasn't anything, you know, like, oh, this represents, you know. He made a bustle, he threw his bustle on, and he made some big old arm bustles, and he went out there and he showed up, and he was the first fancy dancer to do that. What happened was, it made those judges go, wow, look at him, right? That is fancy dancing at its core. Everything that we wear, everything that we do, the motions, the fringe, the rocker on our head, the stick, it's all designed to attract attention to us, because back in the day, these younger guys wanted the jobs more than the older guys. And Buffalo Bill could only take maybe 30, 40 dancers. So these other younger guys started cartwheels and flips and spinning real fast and putting more stuff on their outfit, so that the judges would look at them and grab them to go do the show, because they were riling the crowd up a little bit more, because it was a war dance. Oh, look at these Indians, you know. So that's how that dance evolved, and now put 100 years behind that, and it's evolved into a very, almost like the contemporary singing, right? It is the contemporary singing of dance. It's wild, it's fast, it's flashy, it's fancy, and it's great to watch. We usually save them for the end of the nights, right? We call them the show stoppers. But it's a very fast and flashy, fancy dance. And I'm still, even though I might not look like it, but I still am very grateful to still be at my age, to be dancing and be out there in the circle still. Because I have a son who's 22 who dances, and he still kind of looks at me as, you know, come on, Dad, you can still dance. You can still dance. I'll go till I'm 50, son. So that's that. There's also chicken dancing. Chicken dancing is it's a mating dance, believe it or not. It's a mating dance. There's a bird that comes out in Montana. He comes out and he does this little dance when it's time to mate. And then he does that and he puffs his chest out and he tries to attract that female bird. And he kind of has this little thing like that. So there's actually a chicken dance, which like I said, is more of a mating dance. And so those men get out there in these nice chicken outfits and they do that. You'll see them do that dance during the ruffle, and they'll puff out their chest, and they'll really be out there just eyeing up those girls or whoever. Some of them even carry these what they call mirror boards, and they put these big mirrors on, and you'll see these chicken dancers out there. They'll start doing that, and they'll check themselves out in the mirror and whatnot, make sure they're all good. Then they'll make their way over to the side and they'll start winking at people like crazy dance. And the blood, not the Bloods, the Blood tribe, it's either the Blood or the Crows. Both of them claim ownership of that. Who actually originated, that dance? I don't know. I've been to the territory though. I've heard a good story from the Bloods there. I've heard a good story from the Crows. Both of them sound legit, and I'm not either tribe, so I can't really I just know it come from that area. But they both have a thing out where we claim the dance. No, it's our dance. They just borrowed it from us, and it gets deep. All righty, let's move right along. Oh, there's some more dancing here. The jingle dress, yeah, I explained that. Anybody have any questions yet? Oh, okay. Okay, so what to expect at a powwow? I'll read what he has. Powwows are a family-friendly event where people can experience live singing and dancing, sample traditional foods, and shop at indigenous craft vendors. There is no reason to be nervous as what is taking place is social in nature. It is not ceremonial, with the exception of a few things like when we do our flag songs and stuff like that. There will be opportunities for non-native people to participate. The MC will lead the powwow and give suggestions and direction to both participants and visitors alike. For example, there are times when video and photos are not allowed, and the MC will notify everyone when it's not appropriate. Yes, all of this is true. For the most part, yeah, if you guys are going to be this weekend, like I said, when the word intertribal dancing is announced, man, come on out. Like you've seen the dance, it's a nice, easy one to look around, you know, ask questions. Everybody there is very excited that you guys are there. I always announce this at the same time. I know our drums are important, but if we didn't have spectators that came to the powwows, we probably wouldn't have powwows. And so that's why I've kind of gotten, I've had to get onto a few dancers that I've known where they go, oh, they just want to take pictures of me. And, oh, I got, you know, and I was like, hey, calm down, man. You know, they're here for that. Why do you think we're here? Like, you know, why if the spectators didn't come to the powwow, there'd be no gate fee, which usually pays for a lot of the drums, you know, the drum fees and some of the dancer fees and for the venue and whatnot. They also make their way around to the vendors and they spend money there. If they didn't have the vendors out there, then the powwow wouldn't make that money as well. The food vendors as well, they come to eat the food, right? There's going to be really, really great food. The Indian tacos are usually the most famous, but there's scone dog, corn soup, all sorts of wild rice. There's going to be all sorts of stuff there to try out. Go check that out. So I always tell people, man, take pictures, you know what I mean? Shake their hands. Anytime anybody comes up to you and shows interest in your culture, I take that as a plus, right? I take that as a positive. It's not annoying to me at all if you want to ask me questions about certain things. That's why we're here. And without our vendors there, I mean, our spectators, we would all just be sitting there dancing by, you know, by ourselves. So we not only need you guys, need the spectators, but we appreciate, at least that's my point of view. I very much appreciate each and every person that comes to a powwow. Even the odd person that looks like they've never been there before. Maybe they had some in their lineage or something. And I just watched a guy last week. He was telling his wife, he goes, yeah, well, you know, my great grandfather, he was, you know, Iroquois, he was Mohawk, and dude didn't look like a drop of native, but he had his wife, his son, and their baby there. And he was just standing on the sides. You could tell he was just genuinely interested in what was going on. And he was happy to be there. His wife had a big old plate of Indian taco and some other stuff. And they were eating and they were enjoying them. And I'm like, that's what we're here for, right? We're here to celebrate as people. We're here to have a good time, but also with our non-native brothers and sisters too, right? Because we appreciate each and every one of everybody that comes from all nations. That's why for us, it's called intertribal, right? I think we should change that to internation or something, right? Like internation, because we invite everybody. Everybody's invited on the dance floor. It doesn't matter. Come on out, try the dances. And once again, if there is anything inappropriate, photos, or there are periods of time where you shouldn't take pictures or video or anything like that, I'll usually, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we're asking for no photos and no pictures, no photos and no pictures. And that's exactly what it'll sound like. So no pictures, no photos. I'll let you know when it's okay. Sometimes there's even instances where dancers drop their eagle feathers and they'll have to do like a retrieval like ceremony. And so they'll do that. So once again, at that time, no pictures, no photos, because that is an actual ceremony. But the powwow itself is not ceremonial. It is sacred, but nothing ceremonial is going on. It's more of a, what we say, social, right? Socialize, have a good time, talk to us, talk to people, eat, you know, buy something for, you know, your lady or your man or whoever, you know, go see the vendors, experience the whole thing. And don't worry about being embarrassed that you don't know, or don't worry about anybody saying negative things or anything, especially with this powwow, because I know they're really they're really, I don't want to say strict, but it's a safe place. You know, everybody's, man, come on in, have a good time, ask questions, dance, you know, and celebrate with us. So that's Powell. Does anybody have any questions now? Go ahead. Okay, at home. Sure, yeah. Um, First off, before the flags, before the actual flags, before we had those flags, we had what's called eagle staff. And the eagle staff itself actually used to be a spear. We used to do a dance a long time. It's still kind of done for shows, but it's called a spear and shield dance. And so what happened was, I guess there was an agreement at some point between certain nations and non-natives that were there, or the government. And so what happened was, the one of those old chiefs, he said, we're not going to go to war anymore. We're killing each other off. We're a lot of bad things. So we're going to take this staff or this spear, and he bent it down on the ground. And as he was pushing it on the ground, he bent it like that. And so he bent it to where it wasn't a spear anymore, and that it couldn't be used as a weapon of war. And so that's why your eagle staffs, even though they stand up like that, they're always bent in that sort of fashion, because it's a bent spear, symbolizing the fact that we're not going to fight anymore. We are a nation of peace, right? And that's what we wanted. We wanted peace. And so those staffs, after they bent those spears like that, then sometimes they put little designs in here like that, and they would hang the eagle feathers of each of the member of that war party, that society, that community, whatever that was. All of them would carry an eagle feather on that to let them know that they belonged to this particular group and that these people were at peace. And so you knew that when we held that up, that we were a peaceful nation. You didn't have to worry about fighting with us or anything. And so when you saw us, we held that up. We are at peace. And so that kind of grew into what we would know as like flags representing nations, because that's what the flags are, right? They represent Canada, they represent United States, and then even our tribes nowadays moved into the flag. So all of our nations now have their own flags. And so when we come in, that's what we're honoring. We're honoring all of the nations that are usually at the function. So since we're so close to the border here, you know, kind of relatively close and not like way up into Canada, many times you'll see the American flag, the Canadian flag, but first and foremost, you always see the eagle staff, because that was the first flag that we had as people. Does that make sense? Okay. Anybody else? Questions?
We'll go to a couple of questions
Okay,
online.
sure.
You just touched on a part of it. Maddie is asking, would you be able to explain the grand entry and what to expect? Smiley face.
Okay. The grand entry, as I said before, it comes to us from the Wild West shows and the rodeos of the early 1900s. And we've adopted that into our modern powwow. So now when we say grand entry, it is the absolute beginning of the day. That's when, you know, all of the dancers are starting. And so what happens is everybody usually will stand up and rise. Men will take their caps off out of respect to the not just the eagle feathers, but the flags being flown, always hat off, unless you are like a veteran and you're wearing an eagle feather on it, then you're able to keep it on. But other than that, everybody rises, hats off, and then a grand entry song is sung. And so from there, you'll have the head veteran coming in first, representing that eagle staff. And then you'll have the flags in, and then you have your head dancers, head male, head female. Usually you'll have your dignitaries after that, or your royalties representing the different communities. And then you'll start with the different dance categories. Usually it starts off with our golden agers, and then it'll go down into the adults, and then, you know, traditional, grass, fancy, and then into the women's categories, traditional, jingle, fancy, and then maybe sometimes woodland or Iroquois. And then we repeat that on down through the age categories. So then you'll see the juniors, which is like 6 to 12. The teens, 13 to 17. And then all the way down to our tiny tots, which is anything up into 0 to 6. I might be biased, but that's my favorite category right there. When I'm announcing, I'm like, here comes the tiny tots. And boy, they're fearless, man. When you get some of them little ones in there, boy, I don't know why we don't put them at the front. because it's just an amazing experience when you see just all of those little and all the work that goes in from the parents making those little outfits and whatnot. Man, yeah, tiny tots as an announcer and as a father, tiny tots are my absolute favorite category. But that's your grand entry. We come in until all the dancers are in the arena, and we have just that little bit of procession where we post our colors, we announce our flags, have a small prayer, and then we introduce our head staff. And then it's intertribals, contest dancing, exhibition specials, and whatever we have on the agenda for the day. But the grand entry essentially starts our day.
Okay, Miigwech. We're going to take one from the audience, from me actually,
Okay.
and then we're going to go back to online. So last year we were at the Pow Wow, and I saw there was a lot of energy, good energy coming off a drum, and they were really going crazy, and somebody was dancing around there. And I started filming that. And you came over and let me know that that drum had been fanned. So I had to stop filming. I didn't realize that that drum had been fanned. There's a bunch of things like the fallen feather and the fan drum and the whistle. Can you talk a bit about some of those ceremonial parts that might come up?
Okay, yeah. Yeah, now fanning the drum, I've done my research on that, and I have failed to find an origin. I've talked to many people and elders and older elders, and they've all said the same thing. Like, we don't know where that came from. But essentially what that is when there's a drum singing, and like you said, the energy's good. I mean, you know that music is first and foremost an emotional experience, right? So when some songs are sung and the way they're sung and the feeling and everybody's dancing and everybody's vibing, man, you don't want that song to end. You know what I mean? I'm feeling really good. You know, like this is a good, man. We're all here, man. This is great. And so sometimes dancers will walk up and they'll take their eagle fan and they'll kind of step in and wave it over the drum. And that's signaling the drum going. So a drum sings a song and they basically sing 4 verses. We call them push-ups, right? And then after the 4th verse, we're done. But on that 4th verse, if the vibes are there, you know, somebody might come over there and shake that eagle feather fan. And when they do that, that's challenging the drum to sing one more. And the drum says, you know, yeah, well, we got you. If everybody's cool with it, yeah. And they'll belt out, and then they'll come back over. And they'll usually do it 4 times for the directions, right? And that's just a signal to signal these singers to, I love what you guys are doing. Let's keep it going, right? Now, at that point in time, when it comes to fanning the drum, like I have my own beliefs about that. You know what I mean? I think it's perfectly fine to film, but that's just me. That decision would be made by the head elder or the head veteran, you know, that's on the head staff. It would be their call for something like that. I personally don't have a problem with it, but you can also do the same thing with the whistle. You can do it 2 ways. You can use an eagle bone whistle, and an eagle bone whistle can only be attained and used properly by somebody who's earned it going to a Sundance, which is a ceremonial thing, has nothing to do with powwows. But they can go do that ceremony. It's a very difficult and trying ceremony, but then they'll earn that eagle bone. And that eagle bone whistles, it's usually this bone right here from an eagle wing. They take that bone, clean it out, and then put some beeswax in it, and they make a whistle out of it. And they use it in ceremony. But every great now and then, the guy will walk up if he's got the same vibes going, or if he wants to honor like his ancestor or something, he'll come up and instead of waving the fan, he'll blow his eagle bone whistle. And as he blows that bone whistle, he'll do it 4 times to signal this drum, hey, keep it going, keep it going. I'm loving this song. I'm honoring whoever or however. And at that point, because it's a bone whistle, ceremony. So no pictures, no photos at this time. And I'll usually announce that. And your arena director will come over there and signal that there's a whistle on the drum. So everybody kind of knows, but it's usually on the MC to let everybody else who doesn't know, because I've seen natives do it too. Sometimes they're sitting there with their phone still recording, you know, and I'm like, hey man, come on. So yeah, at that time, no cameras, no pictures, no photos. Other than that, it's just mainly that grand entry time. A dropped feather, again, if anybody drops a feather, it's considered a downed warrior, so we have to have a ceremony to pick it up. No video, no photos. But anytime that happens, I will let everyone know. We go to his?
Yeah, okay. Miigwech for that answer. I just wanted to add, being Canadian, I felt the need to apologize a couple more times and I asked you what you were talking about. And I just want folks to know that Adrian gave me that answer very, very gently. I didn't feel reprimanded. So if you come across a situation like that, the powwow, it's just ask. And I know Adrian's a very gracious MC.
Oh yeah, thank you.
I know this one doesn't really have much to do about powwows, but could you explain how he gets the eagle bone whistle, like that ceremony?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
The ceremony itself,
Yeah,
or
I
just
was
the
just I was
process
just
of getting it.
curious. The ceremony and the
Okay.
process. Yeah.
Without getting too much into Sundance, what happens is in the United States, we have a program through the National Fish and Game and Wildlife Service. And so as long as you can prove you're native, you can send it into them and they verify the information through your nation. They put you on this big list and you can basically order eagle parts. So, and it's absolutely free. It's a part of the Freedom of Religion Act of 1978. So because we used eagle feathers prior to the government's existence. So it's still our natural and inherent right to use those feathers in our ceremonies. So what you do is you send in your tribal card, they verify it, and then they put you on, well, and then you make an order, and then they put you on this list. And depending on what you want, if you want a bald eagle, if you want a golden eagle, if you just want the tail, if you just want the wings, or you want the talons, or you want the whole bird, that kind of puts you where, a whole bird's going to take a long time. So essentially they put in this order for this bird. 2 or 3 years later, it's shipped right to your front door and it's free. It's freeze dried, right? Dry ice. So you then take the bird, you have your ceremonies, and then you take the bird apart. You'll take the wings off. Some people take the head, take it to a taxidermy, and they'll put that on top of a staff. Or they'll use the talons, put that on top of a staff. But then when they take those wings and they pluck out all the feathers, they'll pull the bones out, even the two here, right? They'll pull that one out, and then they'll boil them, clean them up and whatnot, and then they'll make the whistles. Now, when they go off to Sundance, because Sundance is ceremony, I can't get too deep into it, but Sundance is piercing. So sometimes in the old days, what they used to do is they would pierce here and lift you. And you would stay like that without food and water for like 3 days while everybody took care of you and prayed around you. And so that is essentially what Sundancing is. There's so much more behind it, the reasoning and why they do it, but that is mainly coming from the Lakota Sioux people, and that is not my nation, so I can't go too deep into it because I simply don't know. I just know that it is a ceremony that's very important to their nation, and many people of their nation and other people now, other nations share in that, but they do that, and it is a piercing ceremony meant to sacrifice parts of yourself to pray for other people, relatives, or things like that. It's kind of like a sweat lodge too. You go and you suffer, it's hot, you pray, but you don't pray for yourself, you pray for other people. So anything else?
We got 2 more questions online. I'm going to read this one verbatim. I don't know if I missed it, but how can attendees politely ask dancers for photos? And more importantly, how best to pose next to them? Example, not touching regalia. Is there etiquette around compensating with tobacco money? Big thank you.
All of that is correct. Now, I had my sons ask about pictures. I had my son one time go down with one of his friends at Ganawagi Pow up there near Montreal. He'd come back and he kept coming back with money and big old lemonades. And I was just kind of like, where are you getting this money, son? Like he was like, I don't know, 10 or 11. So him and his buddy decided to go stand at right around the grand entry area. They stood there and said, hey, does anybody want pictures? And people come over to, they have very beautiful outfits. I would love a picture, $5. And people came, okay, $5. And for $5, they was all, here, hold my staff. They were making it interesting. And he'd come back with like $350 in one afternoon. And that was after the split. So they made like $700, $800 just standing there taking photos with everybody and charging $5. Now, okay, photos don't cost a thing. You don't have to pay people. If you're going to like do something with the photo, if you throw it on Shutterstock or what an iStock photo or whatever those are, if you're going to do something like that, then yeah, you might want to talk to the dancer, say, hey, you have a beautiful outfit. I would love to photograph you. Is it okay? And then maybe even hand them a card, say, hey, here's my card. I'll, email me or something. I'll send you copies of all the photos. That is completely appropriate. But yeah, just kind of being a creeper, just taking pictures and then just going home and doing whatever that. And yeah, it's kind of, you can do it. It's a public place. We're there. You know, there's nothing we can really do about it. But just protocol, you know, and just being a good person is, yeah, man, go up to somebody, tell them fit, and that you would love a photograph with them. You know, if you do decide to give them tobacco, it's always appreciated. If you want to give them $5, as always, it buys a coffee. You know what I mean? But for the most part, just ask. And majority of people, especially at this powwow here this weekend, they'll be very happy to take pictures and very happy to pose, and you know, and maybe ask them a couple questions like who did your bead, where did you get your beadwork, or you know, how long did it take, how heavy is it, and any of your concerns. um, just ask them. Most like I said, 99% of natives are going to be, yeah, man, it's cool. You're always going to get that one that's like, well, I don't take pictures, it takes my spirit away when I take a picture, you know, like, you know, they'll give you something like that. So you're always going to come across that one native, but 9 out of 10 of us are pretty cool. So
Okay, Miigwech, this next question asker seems to have done their research because they listed a bunch of faux pas.
all
They're
right.
saying besides avoiding touching a dancer's regalia and or their hair and taking video photo when it's not supposed to, bringing pets other than service dogs, is there something we should all be mindful of?
That's a good question right there. Other than all of that, is there anything? I mean, there's plenty of things to be mindful of. Yeah, like dogs in the arena. Yeah, unless it's a service dog, you don't like dogs in the arena. There's beliefs behind that, but again, that goes back to the Lakota people, and I like I said, I don't know everything. I know the basic protocols. I know dogs aren't allowed in the arena. That's good enough for me. And the Lakotas are the ones who have that belief, so I'm sure they have a very valid reason why. But other than that, nah, like, you know, just come to have a good time, like, you know, because that's essentially why we're there. We are there to celebrate. We do incorporate little ceremonies here and there when need be, but for the most part, it's just really designed to have a good time, interact with our non-native brothers and sisters. I always said too when I was younger that one of the problems I think with the whole native and non-native thing is the lack of education. The two governments really decided that they were going to kind of like cover their tracks by not teaching correct information. And then you have a generation that comes up not knowing, and a generation not knowing why they don't know. And then we go like this, and then, oh, you know, and that is the root problem of that. So doing things like this, powwows, having companies like Tribal Vision Dance and whatnot go in and do cultural performances for schools, and man, you're getting them, or you're doing that one Frederick Douglass quote, it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. So by having these powwows and having people come to the powwows, you know, non-native and natives, because there's natives that weren't brought up that way too, but they come to learn as well. And by doing this, I think we're creating a better connection between our non-native brothers and sisters, as opposed to when I was young and it was very racist. You know what I mean? But I understand as an adult why they were so racist, because they didn't know. The government made sure they didn't know. And so therefore, when they grew up and when we grew up, we were always going at each other because they didn't know. And I didn't know why they didn't know. Now I know. Now I know. And now I'm at peace with a lot of it. So it is very hard to offend me, you know, and different things. You can joke, like we can get real jokey about things, and things can get real, you know, kind of crazy, but it's all in good fun. Because another thing that we always say too about natives is we love to absolutely tease you. And the more we tease you, the more we like you. You know what I mean? Because some people goes, well, those natives are really making fun of me and they're laughing at me, and they're just like, you better get back over there then. You know, that means they like you. If natives are teasing you, that means we genuinely like your vibe, and we start to tease you about it. But if we're all like, you know, and we're very quiet with you, and then something's wrong, you know. But for the most part, Native and First Nations people, we're very funny people. We love to laugh, just like everyone. We love to laugh. We love to have a good time, and we love to tease. So, like I said, if you're there, you talk with somebody, and they tease you, and they go something like that, hey, then they like you. They think you're a good person, or they're enjoying your vibe, or whatever it is, and that's very important to note, because sometimes that can get taken the wrong way. You know, oh, well, they're laughing at me. No, we're laughing with you, man. You know, it's you're funny. You know, so. That's all I would say about that.
Okay, and I saved a tobacco-worthy question for last.
Okay.
It's the last one. I've heard powwow dreams hold a certain significance. what does it mean if someone isn't a dancer but has a dream that they danced in a powwow?
Mm. I'll use my old guy voice for this one. Since it's a tobacco question, I have a belief. That belief comes from my years of living overseas. I used to live in France. I have adopted parents over there from the Celtic nation, and even into the Gaelic nations of Germany and Elsass. That's my mother over there. And essentially, what I believe is through all of my travels, I believe in reincarnation, right? I believe that we here as a people, the as above, so below thing, and that we go through life learning lessons. If you don't learn the lessons, you're doomed to repeat until you do learn, right? So kind of like a school of the gods. So what I think is there are times when I've seen, you know, just like, and I don't mean this in a derogatory term, but I've seen an albino white guy out there just, you know, dancing it up and just and everybody's making fun of him. Even our own people. Oh, check this guy out, man. You know, he's got no socks, no shoes on. He's got his shirt off, and he's just dancing up a storm. While everybody's making fun of him, I'm actually going, that guy was probably native in another life. You know what I mean? Because if what I believe is true, and we go through many different lifetimes to learn the lessons to, in order to be beyond with the old ones, you know, because I mean, like, whatever's out there, it's got to be hard to get into that. You know what I mean? You can't just go, oh, you know, here, okay, now I'm here with these celestial. But no, you got to earn that, and I think that's what life is. And so, as people progress through life, maybe they live different nations, different, you know, different realities, different people's lives. And so I believe that this guy or people like that, when they hear the drum and it's calling to them and they can't explain why, I believe, and this is only me, I believe that they were native in another lifetime. And that once the drum speaks to you, and that heartbeat that simulates our heartbeat, right? Once you connect to that, it's hard to lose that even over another lifetime. And so when they're sitting there dancing that up, I'm like, man, yeah, he was native in another life. The drum is still calling him, and so why don't we welcome him back? So if people are out there and they feel that connection to the drum, that's why we have dinner tribals. If you feel the connection and that connection is genuine and it's speaking to you in that way, go to it. You know, go to it. It is our job to welcome you there. And that's why I get onto my peoples too. We're not perfect. I get onto them all the time. Hey man, don't be making fun of it. Man, he's out there dancing. He's dancing better than you right now. You know, yeah, sometimes I'm like, let's welcome this guy back, man. That drum's talking to him for a reason. And so that is my belief. And so people that do feel that connection, you know, hey, don't let our laughing or don't let anybody else's thing discourage you. Come in there, connect with that heartbeat, and do what you basically got to do. Connect and get the healing or whatever it is that you need. So I would always say that. Like I said, Waterloo Pow is a very welcoming, you know, and a very safe place to do things. And it is absolute great pow. If it's your first pow, it is an absolute great pow to be at. Any more?
There is one more if you're okay for time.
Oh yeah, I'm okay. Are you guys okay for maybe one more?
Is it
Okay.
doing well? Okay. Great question from Emma. Is there an area of the powwow that general public can't access? Drummer space, dancer seats, MC table.
That's a good question. Yes. Normally, and powwows are set up so different, but yeah, normally the drummer's tent is usually off limits. But I mean, you can come and stand, like if the drummer's tent, you can stand there and watch closely. But yeah, you don't want to kind of interfere with what they're doing. You don't want to touch their drum. You don't want to lean in too close. You don't want to do that. You know, you got to let, just like anybody, you got to let them have their space. The MC table, that's not really off limits because a lot of times I get asked a lot of questions, you know, so people come up to the MC table, hey, can I do this? Or hey, or lost and found. That's also the MC table right in front. If you lose your credit card or your phone, I can almost guarantee it'll be up at the MC stand. So yeah. So other than that, no, everything's pretty, go where you want, have a good time, you know what I mean? Have a good experience. And you guys, if something seems off or not right, then it probably is. And then all you have to do is just ask somebody. Like I said, for the most part, you guys will get a pretty cool native person, and they'll be more than happy to tell you. And if it's not cool, they will let you know. Hey, no man, don't film this, or hey man, don't go too far into that drum area or anything like that. But for the most part, again, have a good time. Good with that? Let's see if we had anything else here. Well, that looks like that was not busker in nature. In fact, most will take what they do seriously, hold objects that are three feature in outfits. Oh, what to expect? That's outfits. No, I covered all of that. That's pretty much it. So one last thing, one last time for questions and anything about this weekend. Like I said, I'll be the MC there, so you guys will see me there. If you guys have any questions or anything like that, come on up to the announcer stand, give me a shout, and you know, I'll keep you guys going. There's two-step dances that happens too. There's a lot of spot dances. Can I end on spot dances? Spot dances. When we say spot dances, what we mean is that somebody has come up and given like a $20 donation. I've handed it to like my arena director. He has pre-picked the spot somewhere out there on the dance arena, and similar to musical chairs, if you're out there dancing and the song stops and you stop, and if you land near that spot or on that spot, then he'll come out and he'll, hey, here's 20 bucks. Or hey, here's a blanket, or whatever is being donated. So spot dances do happen. They are fun. You can make a little change up in there too. Go ahead.
I was just wondering about the virtual meeting tomorrow. Is that just for people who missed today? Because it says in the email. Is that for the people who missed it today?
That's related to our volunteers.
Okay.
I can answer
Oh, I
that.
thought this was. Oh,
This is also for volunteers, just for general information, but tomorrow there's still another meeting for volunteers. Just so everybody's ready.
Okay. Because this is the first year, it's moved, right? Like it's not where it used to be. It's like on campus now. Okay.
If that's all we got, we're going to be mindful of your time. Just to reiterate, Adrian swooped in like a hero and filled in last minute for Gordon, who's a little ill. So big thanks to Gordon for sending Adrian. Big thanks to you for doing that. Can we get a round of applause, a war cry for Adrian? And I also want you to give a round of applause to yourself for coming out here and making the time to learn and educate yourselves and be a real part of this community. So let's get a round of applause for you folks and the ones online. Okay, folks online, if you are volunteering, there's still another session tomorrow, just for your information, and so we can make sure we're all up to date. So please do attend that one as well if you have any other questions. If you have questions for Adrian that you didn't think of, you can email us at indigenousrelations@uwaterloo.ca. So other than that,
Or come see me at the Pow Wow.
we would also like to give a big thank you to your lovely partner there with the
She knows what it means.
she knows. Okay. Thank you back there. Now, everyone have a great night.
For having me, sir.
So